over 15 years, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Relaxed, refreshed, rejuvenated, and raring to go. We say good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. And for all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we welcome you to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Along with Dave Minuk, along with Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mindell, here for the next couple of hours to talk all about the Winnipeg Jets. We hope, we trust that everyone's had a good couple of weeks off. It's been a rare midweek, mid-season break for a couple weeks, but we've enjoyed it, but we're glad to be back at it and here with you for the stretch drive. 26 games left for the Winnipeg Jets, plus what many expect to be a long playoff run. We're here for the rest of it and excited to be here. Gentlemen, Dave Minuk in the right, Ezra Ginsburg in the bottom middle. It's great
in the shadows, apparently, according to Spency.
Yeah,
look, my lighting is not that great in my house. I don't have the $2,000 lighting kit like Mindell has in his sprawling mansion there in Crescentwood, but
it was $59.99.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally $60. That's what it was. So the GoFundMe to get Ezzy a box light and the ability to close the blinds behind him.
Really, all he has to do is close those blinds.
Yeah, that would go a long way, is closing the blinds behind you.
Let me tell you, boys, they are closed, but I'll try to do something maybe when we're during the break. But Drew, you mentioned, the 2 weeks off. Like it was a long 2 weeks. Like, I don't know about you boys, but it's kind of weird anytime we have a Saturday morning and we don't have a show. Don't get me wrong. It was nice to, have a week off, spend a little time with family, but, especially guys leading up to, the gold medal game of the Four Nations tournament on Thursday. I absolutely couldn't wait. Like, getting ready this morning for the show, it's like 2 hours is just not enough time for everything that we have to talk about, right? Like, obviously, we'll talk about Canada's big win and get into the, the Jets Blues game tonight. You guys are going to be at Boston Pizza for the watch party. I'm not going to be able to attend because I'm going to be parenting, but it's a big night for us. But boys, we have to, do we not have to start off? It's been less than 48 hours since that game. Like, I don't know about you boys, but I can spend a lot of time talking about that Canada win because boy, oh boy, was that exciting. I mean, you just couldn't have scripted that better, guys.
No question about it. The Four Nations, and we will start with that on this morning's show, and a lot of Winnipeg Jets talk, of course, as well. But the Four Nations was an unmitigated success for the NHL. And usually when I put the words NHL and unmitigated together, the next word is disaster. But in this instance, it certainly wasn't the case. It was a home run for the NHL. You saw the TV ratings, just under 10 million people south of the border had their hearts broken by Connor McDavid in overtime. Obviously the geopolitical element of the what's going on between the two nations added to everything else with in terms of the excitement. And we don't need to delve deep into the geopolitics of it. You can go elsewhere to find that conversation. But just strictly from a hockey perspective, from a growing the game perspective, from an entertainment perspective, it was a very entertaining tournament. Everything that you would want to have seen in that tournament was achieved. I do have to say, though, at no point in the lead up to the tournament did I think that it was going to be a glorified exhibition or that it was going to be like all-star game speed. So I thought that sort of narrative was just bizarre. I saw all the lot of the insiders who, by the way, did a pretty shitty job in covering a lot of the bigger elements of the tournament. I thought they didn't wrap themselves up in glory in their journalism over the course of the tournament. But the idea that I saw online from people who I would think should have known better, that this was going to be a half-speed tournament or it was going to be a no-hitter kind of tournament, I don't know where that idea came from, because I certainly did not expect that. And it was everything that I thought it was going to be. Anytime you get players of that ilk, and again, remember, the All-Star game doesn't have players of that ilk. The All-Star game has a representative of every team, ones who don't deserve to be there in a best-on-best situation.
Well, and how many times has a guy like Alex Ovechkin skipped the All-Star game, for example, right?
Guys are desperate to skip the All-Star games more often than not. They want to go somewhere else that doesn't involve having to go through that dog and pony show. But guys were, as we all know, guys were canceling vacations and flying in last minute and being airlifted in. When some guy had a hangnail, this was not that. This was not going to be a half-speed tournament from my perspective at all, Dave.
No, and I just had the comment up from 7JP, and I'm guilty of that. I was not overly excited about the tournament, as I expressed here on our show, and all of a sudden, then you watch that championship game, and every single person was heavily invested. And like you said, Drew, there were a lot of reasons to be so, but it's exciting to watch this, Ezzy. We haven't seen this in 8 or 9 years, since 2016. So it's been a long time since the best on best concept has been evident and been
well. And in 2016, Dave, that wasn't really best on best.
Well, yeah, I mean, you had the team, you had North America, you had a bunch of stuff, but like it was still it was still an exciting tournament. But I just think from the perspective of, we talked about it yesterday at Jets practice. I was talking about it with our boy Paulie Edmonds, and like I just said, and Kelly Moore, and I just said to those guys, I said, what amazed, a couple of things. I mean, there's lots that amazed me, but I will say this. Number one, it's amazing to me to watch Connor McDavid in the craziest game, and he just still has more to elevate. Like he makes guys who are superstars look ordinary, and it's amazing. And
please see his first goal against the U.S., right?
But
like during the preliminary round when he blazed past the Americans, made Hellebuck look very pedestrian, right, Dave?
For sure, that's a good point, Ez. And to me, it's not even his goal scoring; it was just the moves that he made and made defensemen like who are like all-star level or a greater defenseman look ordinary. And then the other one, person I should shout out is Thomas Harley. Did he do a good job of raising his stock? And, we've always talked about how good the Dallas Stars drafting is and they are as an organization. But, to the point that Drew just made in that guys are canceling their vacation. Like everybody's seen the video. He wasn't even allowed to practice. He didn't even know if he was going to get in. It was all dependent on Kel McCarr. So he was standing there watching if he could get out on the ice with those guys. And so he did. And like you said, credit to him for canceling his plans to get there. And it was just great. I mean, you could see how much it meant to every single player. And it was like a battle. I mean, it really was a phenomenal hockey game. It lived up to its billing. And for Connor McDavid to get the OT game-winning goal, boys, for someone to win some rumors tickets. I don't know if Drew's selected the winner.
I have to do that. I'm gonna. I'll announce the winner once I have an opportunity to go.
Well, how many? I imagine there was at least 20 people that selected McDavid.
There were a lot. I checked quickly. I did say that that there was. I did see. By the way, 7JP is telling me he emailed me. I did see his email, so I'm going to give a shout out to Seth Jarvis, the Winnipeg kid who got into the championship game, and of course Mark Stone and Travis Sanheim from Manitoba, as you should be doing that because you're the Hockey Manitoba expert. So I should have.
It's all good, Dave.
I should have left that for you, but I would just say that I love the story of Seth Jarvis's buddies driving 30 hours in an SUV to get to that game. I mean, that just shows. And then 7JP was telling me that that there was a buddy of his that was in the building and got a chance to meet the players, and it's
that reminded me, Dave. Sorry to cut you off. That reminded me of when Richie Rockman, our buddy Neil Rockman, the late Richard Tapper, Jordan Farber, when we drove to Calgary in 2004 for that Flames run. That's what that reminded me of. You could see, we're old farts now, guys, but you could see the youthful exuberance in Seth Jarvis's buddies. So you're absolutely right. Good on Sportsnet and Kyle Bukauskas for featuring those guys because that's what it's all about, right? We've had some comments up. Like I saw our buddy Doug, I'll put this comment up. Doug was saying, Four Nations was definitely not best on best. Lots of the best players didn't play in this.
Well,
of course,
there was only best of the Four Nations. It wasn't best on best of all the hockey players in the world.
Exactly. And, look, we would love for Czechia to be there or, other countries to be there.
And they will be. They
will be there in the Olympics. But guys, I'm sorry. The 2025 Four Nations tournament was heads and shoulders above what the 2016 World Cup was, as far as I'm concerned. Like, obviously it's apples and oranges. It's not the same thing, but like, I'll take what we just saw over Team North America. And like, how many people actually cared about Canada beating Team Europe in the final? Like, I remember back to 2016. Not many people
played in the final.
Exactly. There you go, Drew. You don't even remember. It was 9 years ago. But I mean, come on, Canada versus Europe. Like, that was not. Look, the World Cup of hockey should be nations, best on best nations, the 8 best nations, which it will be in 2028, right? And we're going to see it obviously in the Olympics in 2026. But guys, we have to talk about, obviously, well, first of all, for Jets fans, unfortunate that Josh Morrissey couldn't play, obviously is not going to play tonight. But, the biggest story for me had to be Jordan Binnington's play, all the criticism. And obviously, guys, it was a one-off, and nobody's going to say Binnington's a better goalie than Hellebuck. But when it mattered most and the score was tied 2-2, Binnington made those huge saves on Austin Matthews and Brady Tkachuk. And Brad Marchand said it himself. He said, Jordan Binnington is the reason we won this game tonight. So I think, for him, but also, I mean, there were so many great performances, right? Like, I thought Colton Parayko on the back end was really impressive. Dave mentioned Seth Jarvis. He was really impressive. Mitch Marner, guys.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously Connor McDavid is the hero, but Mitch Marner picked up 2 assists in the gold medal game. He was phenomenal. And why wouldn't you expect Marner to be phenomenal? He's one of the best forwards in the league. But overall, guys, like, this was just about Canada beating the U.S. in the face of all of this rhetoric going on. And like Drew said, we're not going to get into this. I'm the farthest thing from anti-American. I mean, obviously, Drew's wife is American. Drew's kids are American. Like, this is not about, crapping on the USA, because the USA is a great country, but this is our sport. And we won the gold medal when it mattered the most. And as a Canadian, I don't think I've ever been more proud than after Canada won that game.
And I just want to say that I did love the deliciousness of the moving of the goalposts, where it went from, this is the most important game, it's so consequential. And don't get me wrong, there's been more important games for sure. I mean, this wasn't the Olympics. Let's be realistic. It wasn't a golden goal. It was a significant goal, and you take it. And don't get me wrong, there was tons of pride swelling up in every Canadian when they saw Connor McDavid score. But I will say I did love the moving of the goalposts I saw in some of the U.S. based writers saying, well, this is important, but really it's the Olympics that's the focus. Like, really? That's not what you were saying 2 days ago. That's not what you were saying after the U.S. beat Canada. You were acting as if somehow this is your game. This is da-da-da-da-da.
Dave, Brady Tkachuk said it's the biggest game. A lot of players said, well, the biggest game they've ever played in.
Matthew Tkachuk said it, and he played in Game 7 last year.
Well,
right?
I was going to say,
but the Tkachuks aren't that smart, so he may have forgotten that he played in that game.
No, but but it also goes without saying. I mean, if you look at the experience in winning on the 2 different teams, I mean, the Canadians had 13 different Stanley Cup winners. Yeah. The U.S. had 3 or 4. So there's a big disparity in that regard. And the only other thing I was going to say about Binnington, Ezzy, because I agree with you. I shouted out McDavid, but Binnington was phenomenal. Deserved player of the game for sure in that one, because I thought he was excellent, especially when it counted, when like you said, it was tied 2-2. But the other thing that's interesting is that he has some familiarity having big wins in that building, right? Because in 2019, of course, for the St. Louis Blues, he defeated the Boston Bruins for the Stanley Cup in TD Garden Center. So
he loves that arena, Dave. Like, that arena, that's a home arena for him.
It was funny. At one point I tweeted, with the famous Jordan Binnington, do I look nervous? And so I tweeted, I said, he might not be nervous, but I sure am.
I had to do laundry before the overtime. I don't know about you guys. I just watched the game at home alone. I guess that means I have no friends, but no, I was watching the game alone, and I had to do some laundry, and I was pacing. And then when Canada scored that winning goal, I went nuts, and I was yelling pretty loudly. And I didn't care if anybody heard me. I wanted people to hear me. That's how big that goal was. Well, and Sidney Crosby's goal, obviously, guys, like, the context, 2010, Canada was horrible at the 2006 Olympics, right? Everybody remembers that, the disaster that was where was that? Italy?
Turin, Italy.
Yeah. I think they ended up finishing like 6th or something that year. So 2010, there was a lot of pressure on Team Canada to not only do better, but to win on home soil, right? So that was different. But like, I'm with you guys. Like, for anybody to minimize how big this was, like this was huge. You had non-traditional hockey fans talk, like Pat McAfee, like, you know, the biggest names in media talking about this. So you can't minimize. This was huge. Like, and yes, the U.S. beats Canada every once in a while, but when it comes to best on best at the senior level, Canada truly has the U.S.'s number.
No question about it. And as soon as the game ended, and it was a great game, no doubt about it, my mindset shifted to how is this tournament going to impact the Winnipeg Jets moving forward? Because, the players, they enjoyed themselves, they celebrate, they partied late into the night, but quickly their mind gets back to their day job, which is the Winnipeg Jets, and they'll be in action tonight against the St. Louis Blues, minus Josh Morrissey, minus Connor Hellebuyck, of course. Kyle Connor expected to be in the Jets lineup for tonight. And from the Jets' perspective, I have to say, I think the tournament went about as well as you could hope in terms of the perspective for the remainder of the regular season. And I messaged this, I X'd this, I tweeted this, I blue skied this, whatever the hell you want to call it. But I said, look, from the Jets' perspective, Connor Hellebuyck affirmed himself again as the best goaltender in the world. I mean, yes, they lost, and he was the losing goaltender, but nobody's going to say a bad word about Connor Hellebuyck's performance in this tournament. But he's still hungry for more, of course. So the Jets will be able to leverage that hunger. Hellebuyck.
Put it this way, Drew. Sorry to cut you off. 2 Connor Hellebucks in net wouldn't have stopped that Connor McDavid shot.
Of course. I mean, look, the goals that Hellebuyck gave up in this tournament, they were not goals that you would say by any stretch had any sort of odor on them or anything along those lines. So Hellebuyck is going to be able to use this defeat, you would expect, as further motivation to continue the Jets' incredible season. Josh Morrissey obviously doesn't get to play in the championship game because he comes down with a wicked case of the flu at the last minute. And he's going to be annoyed by that. He's going to be happy that the team wins, of course, but he's going to be annoyed that he wasn't able to be on the ice, that he was so ill he wasn't even able to be in the arena.
That's what I was going to say,
night.
Drew. Like, just quickly, and go back to you here. Like that, like I'm sure none of us knew that he was in the hotel room when we were watching live. So I was kind of praying that Morrissey would come out and get to hoist the trophy, right? But look. SHIT happens, right, guys? And he wasn't able to play, but you're absolutely right. And just one thing I'll add to Hellebuyck, Drew, you mentioned this on social media. He didn't have to play all 4 games. So he only played the 3 games. So I think you're absolutely right. He played really well. Look, what was his save percentage? .950 going into the gold medal game? Like, he was a huge reason why the USA got to that gold medal game.
And you'd be worried, the big talk, leading up to this, of course, this tournament was, okay, everybody else gets a couple weeks off. Is Hellebuyck going to be overworked now because of the tournament? How is that going to impact him where he seems like he runs out of steam down the stretch? Well, if I look at a calendar correctly, the Jets last played on Friday, February the 7th, which was 15 days ago. And Hellebuyck's not going to play again until the 24th. Likely on Monday, which means that he's played 3 hockey games he's played 3 hockey games in 17 days. So that's a ton of rest for a guy who's used to playing 3 hockey games in 6 days. Yeah. So from his perspective, he's relaxed. And then Kyle Connor, talk about Mike Sullivan overcoaching. I mean, you don't take an elite goal scorer out of your lineup in a game where 1 goal, a sudden death goal, is all the difference. Mike Sullivan, coaches in Pittsburgh, maybe he's not as familiar with Kyle Connor or he's got an Eastern bias or whatever. John Tortorella, same thing, Eastern coach. Maybe they're not fully aware of the elite goal scoring that Kyle Connor is. And if they're not aware of that, well, that's coaching malpractice on their part. But whatever it is, Kyle Connor being healthy scratched from that championship game, Dave, is only going to further drive him for the rest of this NHL season and a lengthy playoff run. Oh, and you still have Mark Scheifele on his FU tour that he's been on since being left off the team. So just from a Jets perspective, you get your guys out of the tournament all healthy. you get them with a bit of a sour taste in their mouth, even though Morrissey wins the championship. I think the Jets are very happy with how this tournament wrapped up. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's valid. And I think I should point out, because one of the things when we talked to Scott O'Neill on Wednesday, because, as the point that Ezzy made, it felt like, months had elapsed. We felt like we were back at training camp again when we spoke on Wednesday for the first time with the Jets head coach. And one of the things he said to us was, because I think it was Mike McIntyre, who will be joining us in less than 10 minutes, asked him was just kind of what was the plan for the Jets who are participating in this tournament. And he hesitated a little bit, which kind of led you to believe that there had been some conversation to that point, but he wasn't willing to reveal it. And he said, well, I'll tell you guys on Friday what the final plan is going to be. And then, of course, yesterday we spoke with him, and we obviously, as he said, we didn't know about Josh Morrissey, but we found out. And so, then he told us the full extent of Josh Morrissey, and Josh Morrissey was really sick all day, all morning, took an Uber to the rink, tried to, get going, see if he could go, couldn't go, had to Uber back, watch the game, was sick, throughout the course. Sounds like, in fact, Connor Hellebuck also got sick, he told us earlier in the week. So maybe there's a reason why he didn't play. I mean, it didn't sound like they were going to use him on Monday anyways, because they didn't need to when they clinched against Canada. But it sounds like Connor Hellebuck had also gotten sick. So these guys, and the Swedish team got really sick. So these teams did get, quite a bit of illness. That was kind of the one negative, I guess, if you want to look at it from that perspective. But so we knew that Morrissey and then, so of course he told us that Morrissey was flying home, Hellebuck was flying home, and Kyle Connor was flying to St. Louis to play for the team. Now, I want to make it clear though, just because there is a little bit of confusion. Some people think, oh, well, Kyle Connor's playing because he was pissed off that he was scratched on Thursday, but the conversation for Kyle Connor to play was held on Tuesday. So that should be clear that it wasn't like Kyle Connor is saying, I want to play because I was a healthy scratch. I suspect he didn't love his usage, right? He's playing 8 minutes a game, 9 minutes a game. So,
I think he wants to play, Dave, and I think you'll agree with this. I think he wants to play because he's healthy and the Jets have a game tonight. That's why he wants to play.
I agree, and I just think you have the Jets had the luxury of having, Eric Comry with the team practicing for 3 straight days. So you knew he was going to be ready to go, and you could afford to give Connor Hellebuck, because look, to the point that Drew's making, sure, it's not a ton of work for a guy who's traditionally overworked, but it is 3 more games that in theory, if you kind of kept him on his load, and there's 26 games in 54 days, you could do some burning out. So it's good to give him the opportunity to go home. He can relax, be with his family, get a couple of days where, remember, everybody else had almost 2 weeks off, right? These guys didn't. So for those two to get a little bit of time, and for Kyle Connor, who's fresh, hasn't played since Monday, all he's been doing is practicing with the U.S., he'll be ready to go. And so I just think it's important to have that clarity to realize, this was a decision that was arrived at on Tuesday with the Jets coaching staff, not something that happened on Friday as a reaction.
That's fine. But going back to my original point, my overarching point is that just from the Jets perspective, I think this was, look at Vegas right now. You don't know the status of Shea Theodore. Look at Florida. You don't know the status of Matthew Tkachuk. I mean, those guys got banged up to a fair bit of a degree. I mean, Theodore.
Matthew didn't even finish the game.
Charlie McAvoy, he's got some sort of terrible shoulder injury and infection. And,
your old buddy Yoel Armia, as he knocked him into the post, which caused the shoulder injury, and then he got the infection subsequent. So Drew, I think the point you're making is a good one. I think the number one thing if you're a Jets fan, you were hoping for was all those guys came through the tournament healthy. And obviously Josh Morrissey is sick, but all these guys are healthy, and he was obviously
he'll be better in a couple of days. It's not like Morrissey's going to be sick for the next week.
No, but I mean, we didn't know how significant it was. So we were talking about it.
We didn't know he wasn't going to play until 6:00 on Thursday.
No, but what I'm saying is we didn't know if he was going to be stuck in Boston for a few extra days. It turns out that he was able to fly on Friday, so that's good news for the Jets because, like I said, he'll get home. He'll most likely, the team's scheduled to practice tomorrow, so we'll see if he's on the ice with his teammates tomorrow. But yes, I think the number one thing is you wanted these guys to come through healthy. You didn't want to have a Shea Theodore situation. You didn't want to have any of those even the Tkachuk ones, because even if they're able to play, these are going to be lingering issues. So you're happy to see that Hellebuck is healthy, Connor is healthy, Morrissey's healthy. And now, Drew, to the point that you've been asking me about, and I've been spending 5 minutes sidebarring about.
To make a short story long, Dave Minuk.
That's true. But I do think it is, you're right. It lights the fire. Most importantly, though, boys, under Mark Scheifele. Because we talked to Mark Scheifele on Wednesday, and Mark Scheifele, hockey nerd, that it's funny because I think Mike kind of gingerly said, "Oh, have you been watching the tournaments?" Like, he's eating it up. He's watching every second of it, analyzing it, and burning that he's not playing. So I think Mark Scheifele, if anybody, Drew, is going to be the most motivated. Kyle Connor, a strong second. Coincidentally, they play on the same line, so we might see that first line torch Winnipeg or Joel Hofer if Jordan Binnington gets the night off tonight.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna mention. Like a lot of people I see in the chat, Snackatoba saying Binnington probably not playing tonight. Obviously, Snackatoba is our goalie insider. Sorry, Kevin Woodley of In Goal Magazine. But I mean, if it's Joel Hofer, obviously Winnipegger obviously has the World Junior pedigree. He's a good young goaltender, right? But I just wanted to mention one thing, like also a great opportunity for Eric Comrie, right? Because we talk about it, right, guys? Like most players didn't play in the Four Nations tournament. So a lot of these guys have been practicing, but it's nice for Eric Comrie, I think, to get a start here. And let's be honest here, guys. The Jets head into tonight's game having won 8 games in a row comfortably in first place in the Western Conference. So it's not like let's not get too carried away.
Well, they have an opportunity to set the franchise record for winning streak with a victory tonight over St. Louis as well.
We should also, by the way, Drew, if we're talking about just lineup decisions, we should also mention Adam Lowry is back after missing.
Right. And we'll talk more about the Jets and the Blues as we go throughout the next 90 or so minutes in this morning's show. But look, this tournament, and Mike McIntyre is set to join us in a couple minutes, so we'll go to break real quick. But this tournament, I thought, the NHL succeeded, the players succeeded, the Jets as a franchise succeed. I mean, I don't know if it was in Mike's column.
Chantal Kreviazek succeeded.
I don't know if I go that far. Let's put it this way: she was no Soul Bear.
Yeah, Soul Bear succeeded singing the national anthem in Montreal as well. I mean, it was just again from a very
Drew's more of a cocaine bear guy, Dave.
Well, we know that.
From a very micro perspective, looking strictly through the lens of the Winnipeg Jets and say hockey adjacent people in Winnipeg, the last couple of weeks were certainly a success. Now, the Winnipeg Jets, of course, are moving. The tournament quickly gets put into the rearview mirror as we're 13 days away from the trade deadline, and you got 26 regular season games left, and who knows how many playoff games. But the Winnipeg Jets and their players and everybody else are certainly now laser focused now that the tournament is beyond them. Everyone's had this nice break. They've had a good amount of rest. I'm expecting the quality of hockey. It always ramps up as we get closer to the playoffs. I'm expecting it to even ramp up that much quicker because of the time off that all these players have had. We'll talk about that next.
Amen, Drew. Amen.
Many more things next with our buddy Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press. Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, Drew Mindell with you. This is the Illegal Curve Hockey Show presented by Play Now.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling sites instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality, in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
We'll be at our local Boston Pizza later on tonight. That's Boston Pizza on Taylor Avenue. We'll be there for the Jets and the St. Louis Blues, an Illegal Curve watch party, followed by a live on location edition of the Illegal Curve post-game show. So if you're looking for something to do tonight, 6 p.m., Boston Pizza on Taylor Avenue, be sure to join us there for another wonderful rendition and edition of the Illegal Curve watch party. Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press joins us on the program. Okay, Mike, let's see the pooch. We want to see the pooch more than we want to see the mic. You know, that's the important part this morning.
Mike, I was enjoying watching you and Piper backstage, like kind of just blow each other kisses. I was liking that.
Yes, she's definitely she's very needy, very snuggly, especially first thing in the morning, which this is for us. I don't know. You guys have probably been up for a while. I have not been.
I was going to say, Mike, are you talking about Drew or Piper right now?
Yeah.
I'm very snuggly. I need attention. I need kisses. These are all things.
Right.
That,
I love it.
Yeah, it's all part of the wedding dowry between my wife and I, or the marriage dowry, is that she gives me kisses and things and snuggles me in the morning. Mike, good morning. Nice of you to wake up maybe a bit earlier than normal, but we appreciate it. Talk about the Winnipeg Jets, talk about the Four Nations, talk about the Jets and the Blues and everything else under the sun. It's amazing, Mike, just how quickly Thursday happened. Everyone's on cloud nine, and just how quickly got to snap right back into sort of 26 games, the trade deadline 13 days away, and just how quickly the world moves. You know, you enjoy Thursday, the glow lingers into Friday, but by Saturday you're back down to regular business as scheduled, as it were.
Yeah, it really is. And I don't know if you guys saw it. I thought this was hilarious. So, like, there's a game at, 11:30 this morning, I think?
I think the Flyers and the Oilers.
Right.
Yeah.
So, did you see that the Flyers flew Connor McDavid to Philly on their private charter, which included Travis Sanheim, Travis Konechny, and John Tortorella. That would have been that could have been a documentary. Like, that flight, I would have paid good money or pay-per-view. Just have a live stream of the conversation that would have been happening on that flight. But I mean, this is what I'm curious to see, and I haven't heard in markets other than Winnipeg. Like, are all the guys that played Thursday night, are a lot of them in the lineup today? I guess, is Connor McDavid playing today? I don't know the answer to that. Obviously, we know in Winnipeg, Josh Morrissey, Connor Hellebuck are going to get the night off tonight. But yeah, I mean, it's quite the transition, and these guys. Like, no, it wasn't a taxing schedule over the last 10 days. Like, they only played 4 games. In some ways, you could argue it actually was a lighter schedule than if the NHL season had just been going on. That being said, I don't think anyone would argue that the pace and intensity of these games was akin to games 55 through 58 of the NHL regular season. Like, these guys have been going all out, and it'll be interesting to see, like, does this almost feel like a step down for them? I have to think it would. And in that sense, do these guys have a big advantage over their peers who have been sipping pina coladas on beaches for, a week and a half, and now have had a few practices to kind of get that rust out of them. But I got to think the guys that played in the Four Nations are going to be a step or two ahead, not just because they're the better players. Obviously, they were playing at Four Nations for a reason, but because they've continued to play hockey. It'll be something interesting to watch. And I saw a lot of predictions that Kyle Connor might have himself quite a night tonight for a lot of reasons. He should be a very motivated hockey player.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, Mike, we don't necessarily have to belabor the point, but I mean, might as well start with that, I guess, before we get more into the game tonight between the Jets and the Blues, right? But I just don't know how you leave a guy with 30 goals and 69 points in 56 games. He's well on his way to a 40, 45 goal season. Like, I just don't know how you leave him in the press box, especially when Matthew Tkachuk and Chris Kreider each played 5 or 6 minutes.
Well, and that's the other thing. Like, they knew Matthew Tkachuk was iffy. And so you didn't know if you were going to get a full game of Matthew Tkachuk, and in the end, they did not. And so, yes, Kyle Connor had essentially lost his top 6 spot, but Matthew Tkachuk was playing in your top 6. You didn't know if you were going to get 3 periods out of him, and they didn't. And so you had a guy that was ready to step in and fill that role. And in a tight checking, low scoring hockey game where one shot can be the difference, and it was the difference, to leave one of the game's best pure snipers, a game breaker, on the sideline over a guy like Chris Kreider, who, like, I know Chris Kreider scored on Monday against Sweden in a nothing game for the US, and I guess that probably kept him in the lineup. Chris Kreider has 20 points this year.
Pretty sure Kyle Connor had 20 points in January.
Right. Like, Kyle Connor has 10 more goals than Kreider has points. And you chose to play that? It didn't make any sense. I mean, would you even play Chris Kreider in the overtime? Like, probably not. But Kyle,
and that's where I thought they missed him the most. Like, obviously, Mike, the U.S., they had the better chances in overtime, right? Like, everybody knows the big saves that Binnington made on Matthews and Brady Tkachuk. But, like, especially in overtime, I was like, how many times has Kyle Connor produced that magic with either Mark Scheifele or Josh Morrissey in overtime? Like, it just doesn't look. I don't know.
Overcoaching is what it is.
It's overcoaching, Mike. And again, like, at the end of the day, like, from a Canadian perspective, who cares? Canada won. But like from Kyle Connor's perspective, it just doesn't feel right that he wasn't in that game.
Here, I'll throw out the conspiracy theory. Mike Sullivan hates Kyle Connor because Kyle Connor fought Sidney Crosby earlier this year. Maybe he holds a grudge because Connor had the Gordie Howe hat trick against Mike Sullivan's team. It didn't make any sense. And I mean, obviously we haven't had a chance to talk to Kyle Connor. I got to think, if you're Kyle Connor, not only are you angry, disappointed, you're probably also kind of embarrassed, right? That it came to that. Like, this is a guy who started the tournament on the top line.
Here, let me throw this up on the screen, courtesy of our buddy Joe Pascucci. Connor with a playoff hat, a guy who's had, playoff success and success against Jordan Binnington over the years. Maybe has seen him more than one occasion, given their division rivals. He might have a book on him, and they chose to keep that book on the shelf on Thursday night.
It is wild, isn't it, guys? And again, not to belabor the point, I mean, Canada won, so everything they did, I guess, turned out. But the best Canadian goal scorer, the best American goal scorer, are both Winnipeg Jets. Neither of them, by choice, was involved in Canada versus the U.S. And again, I go back to, what does that mean for the Jets? I can't think that this is anything but a huge positive. You've got a lot of fires in a lot of bellies happening here. We know Mark Scheifele's been on a bit of a frick you tour since he was snubbed. I got to think Kyle Connor now has a similar mindset. Connor Hellebuck, he's going to want to get back to a big game situation and win it this time. So that's good for the Jets. And Josh Morrissey was outstanding, but to miss that game, again, I got to think that will drive him in a way. You've got a lot of motivated Winnipeg Jets. And the other thing is, other than Josh Morrissey's illness, all these guys came out of this healthy. So that's another good thing, because we can't say the same about some other players. Matthew Tkachuk, for example, all I saw is a report yesterday that, quote, it doesn't sound good. Guys, if you're the Florida Panthers, how do you feel about the fact that, and I saw Elliot Friedman reported the other day that there were players playing hurt in this Four Nation who basically told their team that they want to do that, even if it might mean missing some regular season games. I got to think there's some ticked off NHL teams. And like, look at the Charlie McAvoy situation. Apparently the Bruins are furious over the Minnesota Wild trainers, who are the ones that were treating him, because they were the ones that Bill Guerin brought. Now the Bruins are going to be without a key player as they try and make a playoff push. And, clearly they feel that there was some malpractice on the part. So yeah, a lot of interesting emotions coming out of this. And it's not just the ones involving the fans.
Mike, the Four Nations is a lot of fun, and we've obviously spent a lot of time this morning discussing it, reflecting on it. But we have to change the channel. We have to change don't change the channel. We have to turn the page, though, of course, on that tournament and get.
Dave wants to talk about the Moose, Mike.
Yeah, I will. Mike was covering the Moose, but
I was.
But I'm not going to talk
Moose
about the
Insider.
Neither of you wrote about the great Zamboni job that my daughter did at the Moose game on Monday afternoon.
I got you a picture from the.
Drew, how much did you have to pay to get Aaron on that Zamboni?
I didn't have to pay anything. Her name was randomly drawn, and I had a very happy little girl who got to ride the Zamboni during the first intermission on Monday.
Well, so I'm not going to ask Mike about the Moose, but I will ask him, because it's been just over a month since we've last seen Adam Lowry in a Jets uniform. Jets, of course, have reeled off 8 straight wins. Mike, is the captain in jeopardy of getting kicked out of the lineup if he doesn't have a win tonight in the city of birth in St. Louis? But obviously I'm joking, but just from your perspective, you've been in practice obviously all week. What have you seen from him, and just how you can hear from Scott Arniel, and maybe you can reflect on that with the audience, but just how much he means to this team, despite the fact that they've won 8 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, I think more than anything, guys, that speaks to the resilience of this year's Jets team, that they could lose a player like Adam Lowry, who we know how important he is. He was having a great season, leading in all kinds of ways, on track for a career year offensively. And to go 8-0, like, you remove the captain on any NHL team, they're going to be hurting. And, I thought this was a great opportunity for a number of Jets players to step up, and they did. Rasmus Kapari would be at the very top of that list. David Gustafsson would be also at the top of the list for a guy who took advantage of bigger opportunities. And that's a great thing for Winnipeg, because you need to have that, especially if you're going to have a long playoff run. You might run into some other injury situations. Now this team knows that you can take a key player out of its lineup, and they can still keep rolling. And that's a good confidence to have. That being said, I know Adam Lowry did joke the other day about that he might have to earn his way back into the lineup. We know that's not the case. He's got a spot in the lineup, and for good reason. And, one thing it does is it restores kind of natural. I was interested to see what the Jets did with him, because don't forget, just before the injury, he was playing with Nikolai Ehlers, and they seem to have found something there.
Yep.
But again, we talk about players stepping up. One of the things that's happened in Lowry's absence is finally the Namestnikov, Perfetti, Ehlers line has really started to click. Mm-hmm. And Scott Arniel, I think wisely so, is not going to disrupt that. He's going to leave that as it is. And that means the Jets get back to that, what I think we would all agree is one of the best sort of shutdown trios in the league in Niederreiter, Appleton, Lowry. Now, Appleton was hurt as well, so that line had been disrupted. Now it's back intact, and so I think some really good things happened. Obviously, the 8 wins, but you also got to see other players step up, step in, and should serve the Jets well going forward.
Mike McIntyre, our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show Saturday morning. The program presented, of course, by our friends at Play Now. Mike, Eric Comry, you had an opportunity to speak with him. Everyone had an opportunity to speak with him a few times over the course of the last few days. And I mean, besides being the world's nicest person, he's just a gem of a quote. But I thought that his comments yesterday were particularly, like, he's so insightful as to the game of hockey and the realities associated with playing hockey. And, you know, a lot of these players are maybe disconnected from the costs associated with the game and the hurdles to increasing the participation, but not Eric Comry. I mean, I thought his comments to you yesterday, and maybe you can fill in our audience about what he said in case they haven't seen them, but just how, you know, talk about growing the game and, you know, 9.5 million viewers in the US for Thursday's game, but that the hurdles are still so significant to actively growing the game at a grassroots level. He's just, I mean, everybody here in Winnipeg wants to see him succeed largely because of such a nice guy that he is. Yeah. But he's also more than that. He's almost just a great ambassador for the game in terms of keeping it grounded for the realities associated with hockey.
He's also Matty Prefontaine's hype man and agent, the Connor McDavid of video coaches. I guess that means maybe that means Matty Prefontaine is going to have a call in like a final game, like the Stanley Cup final, that turns the tide. If he's the Connor McDavid of video coaches, we just saw what the Connor McDavid of Connor McDavids can do in a big hockey game, right? But yeah, I mean, I admit, guys, I was floored by Eric Comry's insight yesterday because, again, we get used to. Clichés. This is going to sound like a knock against hockey players. We get used to kind of cookie cutter, can respond. I was not expecting this when I simply asked him what he thought the Four Nations meant for growing the sport. And, you know, he went on this lengthy kind of speech about the cost. And so just a quick summary, he said, quote, "It's ridiculous how expensive it is. And it kind of grosses me out thinking how hard it is for kids to play this game." He was approaching it largely, well, from all perspectives of hockey, but certainly from a goalie perspective. And he talked about just how expensive goalie gear is and how difficult it is to get. And, you know, one thing that's interesting, guys, what's the big takeaway out of the Four Nations in Canada? Where is our goaltending gone? Right. He's a Canadian goaltender, right? And so it's an interesting angle that maybe nobody really talks about. Is one of the reasons we've stopped being a goalie factory is because a lot of people don't want to let their kids even play that position because it's so expensive. Like, you're just not, you know, I remember I was a goalie as a kid, and I started when I was like 6 years old. And the reason I started because nobody else on my team wanted to do it. And I volunteered to do it, and I fell in love with it. But when I was a kid, the community club used to supply
goal pads.
Right. I still remember those things. They weighed about 100 pounds. They weighed as much as I did as a kid.
Mike, we're talking. I remember from House League, those brown, those brown pads. Yeah, we're all of the same vintage.
And you couldn't move. Pads. The puck just had to hit you because you couldn't move laterally because the pads weighed more than you did.
Also, as my parents would attest, they absorbed the smell of those things was awful. Like they polluted the entire house. Because they were just thick, heavy leather. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was great insight from Eric Comry. And to be clear, he wasn't saying like this is a guy who comes from a lot of money. Eric Comry does. His family is,
which is all the more impressive. Because he actually realizes a guy who, you know, never had an issue in his family in affording the pads and the equipment and the new sticks and everything, and he's still aware of how significant the challenge is. I mean, it just goes to show you that how grounded he is as a human being.
Yeah, he is absolute salt of the earth. You can see why the Jets keep bringing him back. I mean, they love having him in the room. He just, you know, and he said many times this is the tightest group he's ever been around. You know, and keeping Connor Hellebuck happy is a big part of, if you're the Jets, what you should be. And Eric Comry. I mean, Eric Comry makes everyone happy. He really does. Like they love having him there. Mark Scheifele officiated his wedding. Like there's a lot of connections there.
And he's having a great season.
That's the thing, right?
He's
it's
playing
not
great.
just a token.
Yeah.
This isn't this isn't just a goodwill gesture. He is having a very good year. He's he had some tough luck, of course, with a lack of run support over a stretch there. But yeah, I mean, he's done. If your backup can post, like his save percentage is above the NHL average this season, and that includes like all starters. I mean, if you can get that from your backup, you're good as gold. And yeah, he's a golden human being. So it was a great unexpected quote, and I was looking like it's crazy how things you maybe didn't expect to take off. I'm just looking. I posted his quote on X as of this morning. It has 212,000 impressions, 2,500 likes. Like it's gone, I guess, viral in a way, because I think so many people, like it just like flipped a switch. People went, oh my God, to see a hockey player who gets it, who's willing to say that out loud, was just like a breath of fresh air. And
it's all because it was an intrepid journalist asking the great questions. That's what it was, Mike.
Indeed. Yeah. Sometimes, guys, stuff just falls out of the sky or into your lap. And this was an example, because I did not expect the answer that he gave. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And getting back, I think I'm next, right, Drew?
Yeah, you are.
Getting back to tonight's game between the Jets and Blues, Mike, you mentioned this earlier. You reported this from practice that for those who are just maybe joining us now, Josh Morrissey's not going to be playing. Connor Hellebuck's not going to be playing. Kyle Connor will be playing. So obviously it's not going to be the quote unquote full Jets lineup that we're used to. But I was thinking about tonight's game, and the Blues are obviously kind of the definition of a middling team. They're obviously not going to be a playoff team this year unless they win their last 26 or 27 games of the year. They're way too far back. I think they're like 25 points behind the Jets just for
they're 8 out of a wild card spot.
Exactly. So when you're 8 out of a wild card spot at this point, it's going to be tough. You're going to have to go on like a 7 or 8 game winning streak just to have a chance. But for me, I don't know what my expectations are for tonight's game, right? Because it's obviously been a couple weeks off, but for the Jets, obviously coming into this game, 8 wins in a row, they're comfortably in first in the West. Everybody knows that. So what are you expecting for tonight's game? Because obviously that's a very open-ended question, but I would expect, there's going to be some rust because these guys, most of the players haven't played in a couple weeks.
Well, I'm expecting one of two things, either an absolute snoozer or a wide open, oh my God, what was that guy thinking? What was that like a mistake-filled, exciting hockey game because it's sloppy and like it almost feels like an exhibition game in a sense. Again, especially with the Jets not even dressing the full lineup. I don't know what the Blues are doing. I haven't seen. I saw Jim Montgomery's comments yesterday. He wouldn't rule out starting Jordan Binnington. And hey, if you're the Blues, actually, you might want to start Jordan because, like you just said, they got to go on a huge heater here,
right?
And they don't have a lot of the Jets can afford to kind of take it easy. Not that I expect they will. They haven't done that all year, but the Jets are in a very comfortable position. The Blues are in a very uncomfortable position, and so I don't know. Maybe Jordan Binnington, fresh off winning the championship the other day, maybe he actually plays tonight. Maybe Colton Parayko plays tonight, fresh off being Josh Morrissey's blue line partner until the other night, because the Blues need. So St. Louis should be desperate. By the way, what a story it would be. Imagine Jordan Binnington parlays his play in the final.
Sorry, Mike. Just courtesy of our buddy Lou Korak, who covers the Blues for NHL.com. It's Joel Hofer tonight for in that he just announced that about 20 minutes.
Mike, let's pretend we didn't know that though.
Yeah, but okay, let's say this game aside. Let's say Binnington just catches lightning in a bottle, like shades of 2019. Although they have a lot less runway now than they did then, but they don't need to finish as they did. They just need to sneak in. Imagine St. Louis gets red hot, led by Binnington. Sneaks into that second wild card position. Oh, who would they play in round one? Very likely. That would be your first place Winnipeg Jets and a Hellebuck Binnington sequel, not only to the Four Nations final, but also 2019. That would be the ultimate kind of face your ghosts of the past, slay the dragon. In fact, the other day I was just thinking, imagine the Jets play St. Louis in round one. They somehow get by that. Next up is the Colorado Avalanche, who eliminated them last year. Let's say they get by that. Then the Western Conference Final against the Vegas Golden Knights, who this could be the ultimate face your demons, slay your dragons kind of playoff run. Hey, I'm a newspaper writer. I'm always looking for the good storylines, right? The game tonight, I don't know. I just know as a spectator, it's probably going to feel slow. We just watched some of the fastest hockey we've ever seen. But if you're the Jets, you got some motivation, right? Chance to set a new franchise record. They've never won 9 games in a row in a regular season. They have a chance to do it tonight. We'll see what it brings. I mean, all jokes aside, I absolutely love the Four Nations. I am happy the regular season's back. Might feel a little slow off the start here, but it's going to be a fun kind of sprint, as Scott Arniel called it the other day, to the finish line. And hey, the Jets, nobody's really talked about it. I got to think, if you're the Jets, getting the number 1 seed, winning the division, something they've never done before, that's got to mean something. And if nothing else, winning your division means you get to avoid Colorado or Dallas in round 1, which I think is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, you talk about the comments that Eric Comrie made, and I was standing in the gaggle while you were having a chat with him, and I couldn't help but overhear. And I thought to myself, this guy needs to be part of Travel Manitoba needs to hire Eric Comrie to be the non-resident booster of this fair province. But, one of the things, and I went on a rant about this, as did Drew a few weeks ago, about the athletic question, because I think it's stupid and lazy, but they ask it anyways. And I did like Scott Arniel's glass half full approach. Although the question, I don't think he understood the question, because it wasn't exactly the way he flipped it.
Does not mean 53% want to play in Winnipeg.
Yes, no, but that's okay though, because he didn't have the full understanding of the question.
Yes,
but regardless of that, I mean, the question is out there, and I just liked your column the other day in the Winnipeg Free Press, just in terms of the way guys see this market. Because look, we choose to live here. We love living here. Everybody could live elsewhere. Almost all of us have lived elsewhere and come back to Winnipeg. From your perspective, was there anything that kind of caught you or caught your eye? Because again, you expect the players to defend it, we love the organization. But again, Eric Comrie went above and beyond defending, because like I said, too often guys will say, I love the team, I love the arena, but you don't hear them say, well, I love the city, I love the people, or they might in a kind of a superficial way. He went above and beyond, and I know you spoke to others about that as well.
Yeah, I talked to Nino Niederreiter, who has embraced, now he's from Switzerland, so, the winter is probably not as harsh, but this is a guy, I did a story on Nino back in December, where he went snowmobiling and he ended up helping stranded motorists at the most Manitoba thing ever, right? And I had talked to him in the past about snowmobiling and how much he loved it, and talked to Dylan DeMello, who doubled down and signed an extension here, just like Nino Niederreiter did. And, he got his back up. He was pretty defensive. He's a very good defensive defenseman. He got defensive about criticism of Winnipeg. He really did. And I think that's what really struck me. You have this perception, and it's so different than the reality. The reality is we see it. How many guys have had it? If this is such a godforsaken place to play hockey, why don't guys, when they have a chance to get the hell out of here,
leave,
do that? And we've seen many examples, whether it's drafted and developed guys, Hellebuck, best goalie on the planet, chose to stay here 7 more years. Mark Scheifele, Josh Morrissey, Kyle Connor, Adam Lowry, Nikolai Ehlers. We'll see if Ehlers re-ups this time, but he has in the past. And then guys that have been traded and re-upped here, Namestnikov, Niederreiter, DeMello. Matthew Perreault in the past. Like there's a long list of guys. So clearly this place isn't so bad. And so I wanted to get to the root of that. And certainly the community feel was a theme that players talked about, both the community itself of Winnipeg, and these are hockey players. They enjoy playing in a market where fans care, where they get recognized. Nito Niederreiter, when he rescued those stranded motorists, they knew who he was. But they, gas station, grocery store, whatever, these guys enjoy it. Not every player is like that. Sure. Some guys like to go play in Columbus or Nashville or wherever, where maybe nobody knows who they are. I think a lot of Jets players really like that community feel. And then there's the community within the organization. And I think this speaks to something that all of us who cover the team, we know this for a fact. There's a family feel. You could argue that at times in the past, it's not all, like, maybe the Jets should run themselves a little more like the mob, like the way Vegas does, cutthroat. But the Jets are extremely loyal. They go out of their way, above and beyond, to make the environment as positive for the players and their families. That's the other important thing. Families, right?
Yeah.
Spouses, girlfriends, whatever, children. And the Jets do a lot of things. We see it all the time. You see the kids coming on the ice with the players, those that have it. There's the lounge, the wives. There's a really good support group that the wives have. So I just think it speaks to what True North has done, because everyone knows what the perception is. So you got to fight back against that. That being said, there is some truth to that perception. There are players who really do have Winnipeg. Like, this was a hypothetical if you had a no trade. Well, we know that there are players with no trades and that Winnipeg is on a lot of those lists. Fortunately for the Jets, the number of players with no trades, it's the minority of players, not the majority. But Kevin Cheveldayoff's hands are tied in a way when it comes to certain players. And Scott Arniel's talked about that in the past. He said, I've spent the last 3 summers in the control room at free agency. I've seen it myself. Players who say thanks, but no thanks to Winnipeg. And they wouldn't. And again, that goes beyond just things the Jets can control. You can't control the weather. It is what it is. Taxes. And Eric Comry talked about that. Taxes are a big deal. It's why you see players flocking to places like Florida, not just the weather, it's the taxes. All that being said, Eric Comry mentioned the American dollar goes a lot further in Canada these days, right? Like, these guys are getting paid in American money. Cost of living here is reasonable. I thought it was an interesting. I wanted to do the story, obviously, to just see what these players said, and I was genuinely impressed with how insightful they were. Eric Comry once again being at the top of that list.
Hey, Mike, sorry, Drew, before you get in here, last time I checked, there was no Sergeant Sunday in Florida or Vegas or California, Mike.
It's all about ice cream for Ezzy.
We also don't have hurricanes. We don't have sharks. And
earthquakes. No earthquakes. There you go. All the natural disasters. We try to avoid those.
Exactly.
Mike, last one for you. 13 days until the trade deadline. Over or under 6.5 days until the Jets make their first move?
Ooh. Over. Yeah, I think they wait. I think they probably wait till deadline day or right around it. Couple of reasons. The Jets are at the 23-man max right now. The rosters themselves, you're allowed to go beyond 23 after the trade deadline, but not before.
Right.
Kevin Cheveldayoff, when we sat down with him in Denver last month, Kevin Cheveldayoff specifically brought up last year's trade deadline and how they acquired Sean Monahan, obviously well ahead of the deadline, but that there was an added cost to doing that, something maybe we don't talk about that much. That cost was Declan Chisholm. They lost Declan Chisholm because of the Monahan addition. They couldn't expand their roster. They had to waive somebody, and that was Chisholm, who the Wild claimed. You look at the Jets roster right now, guys. There's a reason they've carried 8D, even though they've been healthy. They don't want to waive anybody. If they were to bring in another player, whether it's a defenseman or a forward, like who are they waiving to make room now? Unless they're trading a roster player as part of a deal.
It's not something they've. When was the last time they traded a roster player?
Yeah. Again,
at the deadline. Never, I think, at the deadline.
No, they love what they have here. They want to, if anything, they want to add to it. They do not want to be subtracting. So I just think for almost like cap reasons, they could make a big trade today. They have the cap room for it. But there's that potential cost. Now, again, if a player is available that they got their eye on and the GM of the other team says, let's go today, well, you probably do make the deal. But just weighing the odds, I'd take the over. I do think the Jets will make trades. I don't think they're going to stand pat. I think they will bring in, for sure, a defenseman. I think also, guys, like in addition to maybe trying to take a big swing on a forward, I wonder if a depth forward or two now, because Nikita Chibrikov is done for the year. Dave, we said we'd talk about the Moose. I don't know the extent. Dave, maybe you have a better, like, is Parker Ford going to be out long term? I don't know.
Well, the problem for me was that they left immediately after the last game,
Right.
so I didn't get a chance to be at practice. So I'm trying to get some intel on that. I don't think it's long term, but he's not on the road trip. So
I mean,
Make sure you get that intel to the Winnipeg Free Press, Dave.
Yeah, exactly. Chibrikov and Ford they both played games for the Jets this year. Like, there's some depth that if you ran into injuries, those were the guys you'd be leaning on. So I do wonder if they also look for a little more offensive depth. And so the Jets will have the cap space post March 7th. They could keep 26 guys on the roster if they want financially. I mean, unless they go bring in Mikko Rantanen or something like a huge ticket. But yeah, so I just
funny
think
though, Rantanen being retained by Carolina or a third team knocks him down to about $2 million, given that he's already been retained by Chicago.
It does, and let me say though, and I love the idea of Mikko Rantanen here. If you're trading for Mikko Rantanen, I got to think the ask starts with Nikolai Ehlers. If you're Carolina, like, you're not moving Rantanen at this point you just gave up. You gave up Marty Necas. Like, you're trying to recoup something at this point. So, maybe that might be a situation where you have to give up something off your current roster. But yeah, I think the Jets will be busy. I just think it's going to be very close or right on March 7th. Now, it's complicated this year, guys, or maybe not complicated, but they're playing. That's a busy, like, they're playing the night before. And then they're playing the night of. It's the second of a back-to-back. So sounds like Kevin
Philly
Cheveldayoff
on Thursday and New Jersey on Friday.
I was going to say, Mike, they might need that Philadelphia Flyers private charter.
So unlike years past where the Jets have been on the road during the trade deadline, Kevin Cheveldayoff in the past has stayed in Winnipeg to kind of man the battle station. He's going to be on the road this time. But hunkered down, I believe, in a Philly hotel. So he won't go with the team to Jersey on the Friday until the trade deadline passes, because that's where he's going to wait and kind of until it comes to fruition. So
Mike will not be at morning skate. He'll be standing outside Kevin Cheveldayoff's war room in Philadelphia.
Well, I can tell you, I won't be at morning skate.
You knock on the door.
Oh, it's Weber. It's Weber, right?
Weber is on that trip. Yeah, I'm off to. I get Ottawa, Nashville next week, and then Weber's on that trip. But we sort of alternate from now on till the end of the season here. So yeah, but it'll be interesting to see. I just think on your over/under question, I'll take the over.
Okay, Mike McIntyre, the Winnipeg Free Press, another great appearance here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Mike, enjoy today's contest. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your insight, and we'll do it again real soon.
I think Piper needs a walk now, Mike.
Either that or we might go back to bed. We'll see.
Thanks, Mike.
All right.
Here's Mike.
Take care.
Oh,
Mike McIntyre. Always
you heard
a great
Piper with
guest.
a little bark there, Drew.
That was good timing by Piper, just to bark right at the end of the interview.
I think what Piper wants is Piper had something to say about the Jets in the Four Nations tournament.
Well, I'll tell you what, maybe we'll bring Piper in on the other side of the break as we keep the Winnipeg Jets talk going on this Saturday morning. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. We'll talk about the trade deadline. We'll talk about the Jets and the Blues. Much more to come on this Saturday morning edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Center. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Center. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Always great catching up with our buddy Mike McIntyre. Great insight, great interview for about that 40 or so minutes we spent with him. Jets and the Blues later on tonight. We'll be at Boston Pizza on Taylor Avenue, as we mentioned, for another edition of the Illegal Curve watch party, and then live on location post-game show. So if you're looking for something to do, we haven't done a Saturday night watch party before, if I recall correctly.
Nope.
So if you're looking for something to do on this Saturday night, join us there at Boston Pizza. We're looking forward to it. It's going to be a great time. Big thanks, of course, to the title sponsor of our programming. That is Play Now. Learn to bet with Play Now, the official betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets. Sign up and get up to $250 in bonus bets. Conditions apply. 18 plus. Enjoy responsibly. I'm so used to saying these things day after day after day after day. I'm a little rusty. I had to read it off. I had to make sure I was getting the language right, the lingo, the verbiage right. But I think I was able to execute it properly. But we'll see. If
I just put $100 down on Play Now that Drew's going to have wings tonight.
No, Ezra. No, that's a very, very bad bet. I'm well documented that I do not go with boned chicken. Drew and boned chicken.
We had wings last time we were there.
I never had them. You may have had them, but I didn't. I am not.
There was a big plate of wings on the table. I thought you had some.
That might be yours, Big Daddy, but
you only do boneless.
I do not. I don't even like. I don't ever do wings. Wings are not a thing. Boneless, not a. I'm not.
Dave,
a
Drew
wing
Drew
kinda
liked the
guy.
old TV. Remember the old TV show Wings? That's what Drew liked.
That's right. Yeah, I believe that was part of. Was that part of TGIF or was that Must See TV Thursday on NBC?
I think it was on after Boy Meets World. Actually.
Okay, there you go. I appreciate that. In any event, we'll be there.
Dave was a big fan of Topanga.
Trade deadline 13 days away. We've talked about it really for the last number of months, but it's getting closer to crunch time finally, which is important because we can finally put that conversation piece to bed after the day comes and goes on March the 7th, the Friday, March the 7th. The Jets name has been bandied about. We see on Daily Faceoff, our buddy Frank Saravelli is speculating or has mentioned a couple times now that the Jets and the Toronto Maple Leafs might have interest in Scott Lawton out of the Philadelphia Flyers as a depth forward, a depth centerpiece to sort of shore things up. And then we know the defensemen that are likely to be available. There's more opportunity. There's more, I think, names being bandied about and potential acquisitions as teams fall further and further out of a playoff spot. The Seattle Kraken, to me, are a team that certainly is a target-rich environment for teams that are looking to maybe acquire one or two pieces from the same team. We know Seattle is fallen on some hard times and has not been back to the playoffs since they upset the Avalanche in that first-round playoff series a few years ago. They're not going to be a playoff team this year. They're 11 points out. They're a team that definitely has the for sale sign up, and they have some interesting pieces.
Oh, Drew, by the way, there's some breaking news. The Jets just signed Vlad Namestnikov to a 2-year contract extension with a $3 million AAV.
Actually?
Okay, that's a big... Okay,
wow.
Winnipeg, I saw it.
Mike, Dave, I almost called you Mike. Hit the breaking news bumper.
Sorry.
Frank Saravelli, 1 minute ago. You're absolutely right. And the Jets themselves tweeted a 2 years, $3 million a season for Vlad Namestnikov. That is breaking news here on this Saturday morning.
Hey, you know what? That contract just makes a lot of sense, right?
Boy,
like 2 years, $3 million. This is a guy who's been a second-line center. Obviously, guys, I think going forward, he's more of a bottom six guy, but you're only paying him $3 million a year.
And with the cap rising the way it is, what's that really in future? Based on future percentage of the cap, that's less than the equivalent of less than probably $2 million this year or something like that. I don't know the exact numbers, but that's a no-brainer.
Dave has some work to do. By the way, I'm throwing out $3 million. Dave, I'm throwing out $3 million. Like that's more money than I've ever seen in my life, and I'm throwing that around like that's the type of money I see on a relative basis, but like daily basis. Sorry, but I mean $3 million is very manageable. It's very fair for what a player like Namestnikov brings, right? Obviously, guys, we didn't expect that. The guy that we've had our eye on for most of the year is Nick Ehlers, but Namestnikov, that's a great signing. Look, he's been a very reliable forward who can play up and down your lineup. I realize, it's a cliche and we talk about this ad nauseum, but Namestnikov, a guy who's, let's be honest, he's bounced around from teams like Tampa Bay and Detroit and Dallas, and he's found a really nice home. So when you think about Namestnikov and Niederreiter, these obviously, Drew, aren't the stars of the Jets.
Right.
These are big parts, big pieces, depth pieces that make this team one of the deepest teams in the league. So, great for Vlad Namestnikov, and I really like that signing.
Yeah, I mean that is an absolute easy, no doubt about it. He's not that old. The contract will expire when he's age, when he'll be 34. Yeah. I mean, again, this is a guy who's fit in very well since being acquired by the Jets. He's played up and down the lineup. He's played in a role that he's that's elevated in the lineup. That he
can play center. He can play wing.
This is just a very simple, when the number comes in at $3 million for 2 years, there's nothing bad about that contract. There's the old adage, there's nothing bad about a 1-year deal, or there's no such thing as a bad 1-year deal. I would say this is relatively close to the equivalent of there's nothing bad about a 2-year deal. 2 years, $3 million. If for some reason this contract, takes a sharp turn to negative town, it's not going to hurt you long term. It's not going to impact you terribly. It's not going to prevent you from going out and doing other things with regard to your roster management. Namestnikov's happy here. the Jets are thrilled with what they've been getting out of him all these years. I mean, what was the acquisition cost? Mikey Asamont? Is that what it was back at the time? You know, or draft pick, or was that sort of the whole three-way? Yeah, there was that
rounder.
Yeah.
Niederreiter, they gave up a second rounder.
Right. I mean, again, this is a good, smart acquisition. A guy who obviously is happy here, who fits up and down your lineup. He's no maintenance. He's low maintenance. You put him in there wherever you need him, and you move on to the bigger fish that the Jets, of course, are looking to acquire. And so this is a very well done piece of business by the Winnipeg Jets and Kevin Cheveldae off, Dave.
I think Dave might be typing. Okay, I was going to jump in. Dave, you can go.
No. I'm still tweeting. I'm getting it all done on the website. So, but remember, folks, Saturday mornings, Illegal Curve. This is where the magic happens. That's why you want to be on this show with us, part of the discussion. And again, the only thing I'll add really is just the fact that it just doesn't surprise me. It's another sort of guy who likes playing in this market, likes the team, and signed a contract that'll see him play in Winnipeg. He has that security, signed 2 years. But look, he's a guy. Remember, he's a guy who has options. People are like poo-poo it, but the fact of the matter is, it's not like. And remember, people say he's Russian. He's from Michigan. Yeah. Remember, he grew up. His dad was a hockey player. He grew up in the States. He spent most of his life in the U.S. So he's really a Michigan guy, which is why when you talk to him, he's got almost no accent. In fact, I don't think he has an accent other than maybe an American one. But I'm just saying that he is a guy that clearly likes being in Winnipeg and being part of this organization. And I'm not surprised because again, he just fits. He's just again, he's not the Jets' solution to the second line center problem. We don't think he is, but he is a guy who is that. And you talk about cliche Swiss Army knife type player, right, who can play for the Jets and you know what you're getting from him day in, day out.
It's funny. The Jets have always liked every team wants those Swiss Army kind of knife players, but you go back many a year now. Michael Frolik was that guy. Matthew Crow,
you're going through there.
Well, I mean, these are guys who can play up your lineup. They can play down your lineup. Players and coaches love no maintenance players. And the Jets have a number of guys on their roster who would qualify as no maintenance players. Namestnikov, Niederreiter, Iafallo, guys who coach says, go play second line wing for this game because of an injury. Go play third line center this game because of an injury. Go play fourth line center this game because we've acquired somebody else who's going to better suit in the top 6 scoring role. And these guys say, okay. And they go and do it, and they go and execute it well, and the coach doesn't have to worry about it. You need players like this. That's what Vlad Namestnikov is. When you can keep him around at a very reasonable cost, you go and you do it, and done. Just like that. You do wonder, though, and I mean, is this acquiring Namestnikov, does this maybe give the Jets a little bit more willingness to trade a younger player that's in the bottom of their lineup as part of a trade deadline move? Knowing that you got the Namestnikov under contract for a couple of years now, does this maybe make you a little bit more willing to trade a Rasmus Kupari or a David Gustafsson? And I'm not saying I know anything, but you wonder if this isn't the first domino in a series of dominoes with the trade deadline 13 days away.
It's a valid question. It's a very valid question, Drew, because like we've been talking about, throughout this morning's show, the trade deadline's coming up in a couple of weeks. And by the way, I don't think that Namestnikov signing this 2-year deal necessarily means that the Jets won't bring in a quote unquote 2C or whatever you want to call it, a center to increase the center depth on this team. But I think when you talk about, some of the other pieces like Gustafsson or Kupari has had, this goes without saying, Captain Obvious speaking here, Kupari's had a much better year than last year. And I think, Kupari, at least in my mind, has made a case to be a guy who sticks around here, at least in the short term, whether that's in a third line role or a fourth line role. But I think, Drew, when you're talking about, when you're looking ahead to the future, right? We know Mason Appleton's a pending UFA. Alex Iafallo is a pending UFA. There's going to be some turnover. Obviously, it goes without saying that Neil Pionk and Nikolai Ehlers are the big pending UFAs. But I mean, when you're talking about Iafallo and you're talking about Appleton, those are guys that are bottom 6 forwards, all due respect. Ehlers and Pionk are much more important to the success in terms of just their impact. So I think it's a valid question, right? Because I think, everybody knows that the Jets have that first round pick that Chevy could be dangling to other teams as part of a trade package, right? We talked about the Seattle Kraken. A guy like Jared McCann's name is out there. A guy like Jamie Oleksiak's name is out there. And by the way, McCann and Oleksiak, I mean, sign me up. Those are 2 really good hockey players. So if the Jets are going to acquire even one of those guys, I mean, Oleksiak to me, all due respect to Logan Stanley, he'd be an upgrade on the third pair. And if your left side is Morrissey, Sandberg, Oleksiak, Dave, now we're talking, right? Now I think that's a Stanley Cup caliber left side. I just think right now Logan Stanley's better suited to be an extra defenseman on the Jets. That's why I think a lot of people think the Jets are going to acquire a defenseman, whether that's the left side or the right side. But yeah, I think, it shows you where the Jets, it kind of gives you guys a little bit, not you guys, all of us, it kind of gives a little bit of insight into where the Jets are going here, right? They obviously think highly enough of Namestnikov. We already knew they thought highly of him to give him a couple of years. And now with guys like Brad Lambert and Nikita Chibrikov and, going down a couple of years, you even throw in guys like Braden Yeager and Colby Barlow. Like there's going to be turnover, not to forget Dave's boys, Kevin He or Kieran Walton. Then we're going really far down the road. But I mean, there's going to be turnover when it comes to the Jets forward group. There might be a little bit less turnover when it comes to the D-core. But the point I'm trying to make it here in a long roundabout way is that, there is a possibility that one of these depth pieces is going to be part of a package that Chevy moves prior to the trade deadline. So overall, it's just
more comfortable. Sorry, Ezzy, you're a lot more comfortable subtracting from your active roster when a guy that potentially was leaving as an unrestricted free agent, you now know isn't leaving.
Right.
You can say, okay, well, if I have to trade from my active roster to improve it this year, at least I have this guy to backfill that position. I'm not going to have to backfill it on July 1st with a free agency with a free agent that I'm not familiar with, or that I might have to overpay with, or anything like that. So you have almost your backup plan in place immediately. If you subtract from your active roster, something again that we just talked about with Mike McIntyre, earlier this hour, the Jets don't frequently do, haven't done at the trade deadline before. I mean, you think about players that they've traded at the deadline to get Paul Stastny. It was Eric Foley. Eric Foley at the time was a player. I believe he was with the Moose at that point. Still, I don't think he was in junior.
No, he was still in college.
Was he still in college? Okay,
yeah.
So I mean, I couldn't even remember that. And he's the last guy that the Jets. He's the last sort of player that the Jets have traded at the deadline. Everything else has been draft picks and things of that nature.
Right. And you know what? I think what's worth noting here, though, is the fact that it also disabuses the notion that Kevin Cheveldayoff will not make a move with his UFAs. Sure. That I saw that in the chat earlier today, right? And that's one of the things that Kevin Cheveldayoff talked about last year. It's the reason why he let Dylan DeMello and Brendan Dillon as he get to UFA status, because he didn't want to upset the apple cart with moves. Well, that changes the calculus because you now have made the first move for your UFAs. And we know that there's a laundry list of guys who are UFAs this year. Vlad Namestnikov obviously was in the second year of a 2-year deal that he had signed with Winnipeg. But again, this is a guy who's now got a little more security, with this organization that he he's 32 years old. So he's not going to be old by any stretch of the imagination. He keeps himself in very good shape. And he's consistent. And like Drew said, and I agree.
I didn't realize, Drew, that Dave had access to Namestnikov's workout schedule.
Well, I am around him quite a bit every day at the rink, so I see what he does on and off the ice. But no, actually, I wouldn't say off the ice really, but on the ice, I see what he gets to do.
What's he watching on Netflix, Dave?
Currently, he's watching. I have no idea, but I think the important thing is that this means the Jets are now open for business. Now, we knew they were open for business from a trade perspective, and the trade, we heard that during the Four Nations, teams would still be making trades. And to the best of my recollection, I think there was a minor league trade between the Predators and Vegas. But I don't recall that there was much action going on during Four Nations.
And you don't recall the players' names because they don't know their own names.
He was a Russian guy. It was Dimarchenko or something like that. Denisov. Denisov, something like that.
Wasn't he a first-round pick?
He was.
Yeah.
So I thought.
Yeah.
He's been
It was
good in the
sort of a
AHL.
weird trade,
Yeah.
that they gave up on him. They gave up on him for just futures or whatever.
Yeah, no, future considerations, future considerations, aka absolutely nothing. I love
bag
that.
of pucks.
There's nothing I love more than future considerations when it means zero. But
By
look,
the way, how many
trying to
trades?
trade me for future considerations for years?
I
And
have
you
been
still can't get
trying.
any, and you still can't get anybody bites.
They won't even take you for free. That's just how bad it is. So, I just think it's one of those. Yeah, I mean, again, it's a good signing. He's well liked in the room, and again, he is the kind of guy who is going to solidify. He's a bottom guy, 6th guy on a Stanley Cup team. Let's be clear. I don't think Vlad Namestnikov is your 2C wins you a Stanley Cup. I could be wrong. But I don't think I am right now. And I think that, but what he does do is he brings you a lot of experience, a lot of value to that sort of bottom 6 role. Eventually, if the Jets move him out of there this season or next.
No question. So there's the breaking news on this Saturday morning. The Winnipeg Jets re-signing Vlad Namestnikov to a 2-year contract extension. The average annual value is $3 million per season. So Vladdy will be a member of the Winnipeg Jets for the next 2 years, in addition, presumably, to the rest of this season. Before we take our final commercial break on this Saturday morning, I have to say, give a shout out to Brad Roy. He gave us $5. It's his first time joining us here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show and the Illegal Curve YouTube channel. So the rules are well established. If you give us money, we will highlight your comment. We are completely transparent about that, so we make no apologies. So Brad, welcome. We encourage you to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications. We encourage all of you to do that, so that way you never miss an episode of anything we produce here on Illegal Curve, whether that be Saturday morning's Illegal Curve Hockey Show or later tonight, the Illegal Curve post-game show following the Winnipeg Jets and the St. Louis Blues.
Brad, sorry guys, Brad knows that's non-refundable, right?
Yeah, that coffee that's right into Ezzy's coffee fund.
And why is it important that you follow the Legal Curve? Because 2 days ago, when the Jets didn't record any video of the coach's post-practice media availability, Ezzy, TSN wasn't there. Sportsnet recorded it, but they don't ever post anything. So who posted it in its entirety? Where were you able to watch the one source in Winnipeg to watch the media availability with Scott Arneal, where he revealed his tremendous insights? The Illegal Curve YouTube channel. So just remember that, folks. Subscribe, and you'll be the first to see the videos here on our channel.
And by the way,
Vicious
is asking, how do you give money? Email transfer to Ezra, EZRA, at illegalcurve.com. And don't worry, you don't have to, there's no security questions.
The best would be like all of a sudden as he texts us the next day, he's like, guys, I got like $20,000 today. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, much more to come. The Jets and the Blues, the trade deadline, 30 minutes to go in this Saturday morning edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Don't go anywhere. It's brought to you by our friends at Play Now.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now, you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Commercial free for the remainder of the broadcast. Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew
I'm pretty
Mindell,
sure. Sorry, I got to interrupt. Pretty sure Vicious is now official sponsor of this show. If you've looked, Vicious just made 2 separate donations of $69.99. I hope he realized, or she realized that
again, this is non-refundable, folks.
But that's 2 separate ones. So we want to thank Vicious. It was very kind of you, as he is going to be able to get that proper window shade and lighting in his house now.
There's no chance that he's going to get either of those 2 things, but we do certainly appreciate Vicious and their contribution to our well-being with those very generous donations. So thank you again.
This is more money than I've ever seen in my life, boys.
Yeah, you were talking about Vlad Namestnikov's $3 million, $69.99. Also more money than you've seen in your entire life.
That's because we pay Ezzy in peanuts.
Yes, that's true. It's exactly what we do,
and I'm grateful for those peanuts.
We just for the record, though, we, as much as we do appreciate all this, it is completely unnecessary. It's very kind. It's very generous. It's very thoughtful.
Speak for yourself, Daddy Warbucks.
But we do just appreciate you joining us each and every time that we go live. But that's
some of us have a mortgage, Drew. I'll take that money.
I have a mortgage too, Mr. Ginsburg. This Daddy Warbucks thing is not rooted in reality by any stretch, in any way, shape, or form.
It's maybe the fact that you're driving around in a cyber truck, Drew. That's maybe why I made the comment. So.
That's me. Yeah, it's a cyber truck that my kids made out of cardboard, though, is what it is. That's the difference. I'm surprised it actually had an engine. I don't know where they got that from. Let's talk about the Jets and the Blues, because it's sort of
really, you don't want to talk trade. I thought we kind of got cut off because we did
keep talking trade, and then we'll get to the Jets and the Blues.
I'm just saying, in theory, I don't want to. Hey, Drew, you're the host. You have the host responsibilities. But I'm just saying, like, we can, we'll have the talk of, we'll be able to talk. Hey, look, if you want our insight onto Jets Blues, Ezzy, you come to Boston Pizza Taylor, and we sit and we come and talk at every table. We talk to everybody who comes to chat with us,
even if they have no idea who we are, and we're just interrupting their dinner.
We're like, you're here for us. You're here to talk to us. They're like, who are you, and how did you get in here? So we'll hopefully have all of you.
We are the definition of trouble when it comes to things at Boston Pizza.
There you go. So there's no question about that. I would concur heartily with my colleague Drew Mindell. But anyways, I think it's just I just think it's interesting. I think the lead up to this trade deadline, Ezzy, is going to be fascinating. Just under 2 weeks now before that happens. And I think it's interesting, like Mike said, that the team is going to be on the road with, Kevin Cheveldayoff is going to be on the road with the team. So no media availability. He's here likely when he comes back, maybe Monday or Tuesday. But ultimately, what is this team going to do? We know this signing wasn't because Vlad Namestnikov is going to be the 2C for the remainder of the season. You don't think? We don't know, but we'll see, in 2 weeks' time, if that's still the case. I don't expect it to be that way. And I think that, again, I think that if this 1 year has shown us anything, and it kind of goes back to what Drew's point was about how motivated these guys are. And again, you can be as motivated as Connor McDavid is motivated. Everybody, guys in the NHL are motivated. I just think that everything seems to be falling into the place for the Jets this year. So I think this is the year you really kind of have to push. I'm a bit risk averse, boys, but I think this is the year you have to push the chips in and really go for it. And whether that means, and again, you can acquire a 2C with term if you want, if you don't think Brad Lambert's there yet. So then you acquire, and to be clear, and I should illustrate this for the crowd, Ezzy. Brad Lambert's played the last 6 or 7 games on the wing for the Moose. Played 13 straight games at center, but the last 6 or 7 games now, he's been playing on the wing. Saw something similar with Jack Roslovic. Remember the 2C of the future.
How'd that work out?
Well, no, I mean, well, he's having a good year in Carolina, but the fact
how'd that work out for the Jets?
No, it didn't. But the point is that they made that move. So I'm just saying they could acquire a 2C with some term to really solidify the Jets up the middle with Scheifele, Lowry, Namestnikov.
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't disagree with anything you've just said, Dave. It's more than almost in any other season. The opportunity just seems to be there for the Winnipeg Jets. And, just the way it sort of shapes out. That's why we had this conversation it was probably 3 weeks ago now, maybe, where we said, the Jets seem like they should get to the Western Conference final at minimum, the way that they've been playing, the way that they're likely to face the bottom team in the Western Conference playoff race, the way that Colorado seems like they're going through a little bit of a transition, that Dallas has got some injury troubles, Minnesota's got some injury troubles, that the pathway for the Jets to return to the Western final is certainly staring them right in the face. And that should be a significant factor for the Winnipeg Jets, a certain driving force for the Jets moving forward for this season.
Absolutely. And I just want to throw in one more thing, because obviously, guys, 2C, like, we always joke about this, right? Like, we've been doing the show for 16 years and we've been talking about the 2C for probably 8 or 9 of those years, right? Going back to the 2017-18 season with the acquisition of Paul Stastny. But I'll throw out, the defense as well, because, if there was one criticism, I would say, in that first round matchup against the Avalanche, it's that the Jets struggled with the speed, and remember all those high tip goals that the Colorado Avalanche scored. Like, that's why, I think a guy like Colton Parayko would fit in really nicely on the Jets. And again, guys, this might be wishful thinking, because I don't even know if the Blues want to trade Colton Parayko, but I thought Morrissey and Parayko were really good at the Four Nations. But if you're looking at,
that's the guy, like our buddy Kenny Weeb has been banging the Colton Parayko drum for 4 years now, I think, at this point in time.
But I mean, Parayko checks so many boxes in terms of his size, but also he can skate. Like, Parayko is mobile. He's a physical defenseman, but he's a guy that can also jump up into the Playboys and contribute offensively. We saw that for Team Canada at the Four Nations, right? So whether you're talking about the left side or the right side, I do think that again, I don't know this for a fact because Chevy doesn't return my calls. He only returns NHL GM's calls. But you'd have to think that Chevy is looking to acquire, and we've talked about it on that left side, right, guys? Like, we know Colin Miller, I think, the Jets could acquire a left shot defenseman and a right shot defenseman, right? Like, and that goes back to Dave's point and Drew's point about the Central Division. The Central Division is the Jets division now. Like, it's not even close. We've talked about it. We thought there was going to be this, four-way race at the beginning of the season between the Jets, the Stars, the Avalanche, and the Predators. Obviously, we know that 3 of those 4 teams are in the race, but the Jets have separated themselves so much from the other teams in the Central that now it's not a question of will the Jets win the Central, it's a question of will they win the West and possibly win the President's Trophy, right? So I think that's even more reason, knowing that you're going to get a favorable first-round matchup, knowing that you're going to be like somewhere around 120-point team this year. I think Chevy knows that, this is the year for the Jets. Not to say that last year wasn't the year, but I think this year's team is even better, Dave, with the improved power play, the improved special teams, the improved defensive play of the Scheifele, Connor, Velarde line. Obviously, we haven't even talked about Gabe Velarde, a guy who I think, this is maybe getting a little bit out of control. I did correctly say, though, that Thomas Harley a few months back would be in conversation for the 2026 Olympic team. So Ginsburg was right on that one, because Harley did play in the Four Nations tournament. But Gabe Velarde, to me, is definitely in the conversation for the 2026 Olympics. And before everybody goes nuts here, Canada's a very deep team. So I'm not saying that Velarde is going to necessarily be a lock to make the team. But all I'm saying, Dave, is the way that Velarde has played with Scheifele and Connor this year, he's certainly in the conversation for the 2026 Olympic team.
Let me ask you guys this. You look at the Jets' right side of their defense. Neil Pionk's a pending unrestricted free agent.
Yeah.
Do you do you have any consideration with Seth Jones with another team retaining some portion of that contract?
No, stay far away from that, Drew.
Even with a retention, even with a 50% retention?
No. If this was Seth Jones 5 years ago or 4 years ago or whatever, but no, I mean, Seth Jones is not the same. Look,
and remember,
that's not who the Jets need.
And not only that, it's not like you're bringing someone in who, okay, he can bring some playoff experience. What playoff experience does he have? He played for Nashville and Chicago. Does he have any? I'm just saying, like, to me, no, I don't. I'm with Ezzy. Like, this. Remember, we were at the draft. Which draft was he at, Ezzy, when he fell? We were expecting him to be.
That would have been 2013.
Yeah, so 2013. That was the draft.
McKinnon draft, Dave.
Yeah, 2013 draft in New Jersey. You're gonna want to hear this.
Or the year the Jets took Morrissey, if you want to bring it to a Jets perspective.
Sure, for sure. And so, but I'm just saying that from that point of view, I don't think so, Drew. I don't think he's what you're looking for. I think you're like, I understand you want to add. I've been an advocate of adding.
Slow now. That's my thing with Jones, is he doesn't have that speed that he had earlier in his career.
Yeah,
and Look, Drew, I don't think we're getting on you in terms of it's a valid. His name is out there. His name is out there. And I think the Hawks have to retain salary on Jones.
Well,
his contract's one of the worst in the league.
Right. It's $9.5 million. So no one's going to acquire him at $9.5 million.
Right.
No question about that. But at a 50% retention, you're talking $4.5 million with a skyrocketing salary cap. I don't think it's as impossible or inconceivable as it is at $9.5 million.
Sure. I mean, I understand.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I'm just like, obviously, yeah, you're not taking that contract easily, but I just think there are better options that are out there for the Winnipeg Jets. And again, like I said, it's going to be an interesting run up, and we've got less than 2 weeks. And of course, illegalcurve.com, your site source for all that latest information. But I just think that you have to, I think you have to bring in someone who's big and who can move the puck. And you have to, and as he's right, you have to have someone who can play with speed, because the whole idea of the Jets' identity is speed. So if you're going to bring someone in who doesn't have that foot speed, I just don't like it. I don't like the move. I think you have to do with that something like, again, like I said, I can't think of one guy specifically, because the problem, I mean, we know who I'm thinking about on the right side. I've been saying it for a long time, but we know Calgary's not taking calls right now. Craig Conroy keeps saying
you will not let the Mackenzie Weegar.
No, because I just think he just fits everything.
I just don't think it's going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I know that, but I'm just saying that if you really want to take this team and get it to that next level,
keep dreaming, Dave.
Hey, every night when I go to bed, as you have a dream, right? So this
Mackenzie Weegar is the last thing Dave thinks about before he goes to bed, and the first thing he thinks about when he wakes up in the morning.
I dream about Krispy Kreme donuts.
The last thing I think about before I go to bed is really, I hope I set the morning papers to post
AM,
properly at AM versus the PM. That's usually my biggest concern. And the other day, actually, I set it for 7:30 AM, not 6:30. So when the tweet went at 7, someone said, Dave, there's an error. But of course, the papers were good. I just missaid it. So that's what I think about. I think of all of you. I'm usually clipping. In fact, what I'm usually doing is clipping videos of Jets prospects like Marcus Lopin and Ezzy, who had a assist on the game
night last night.
Victoria.
And look, our buddy Brent Bellamy of the Winnipeg Free Press and Number 10 Architecture is talking about, a guy like Zach Bogosian. I wouldn't be surprised. Like I said, Bogosian, I don't think would be the big acquisition. But
Didn't he just sign a contract extension in Minnesota?
I think he did. And also, Bogosian's not going.
No, he's another best before. He's already passed his best before date.
No, but I don't think it's like obviously, Brent Bellamy's asking about Bogosian. My battery's low. Apparently, my charger has not been working.
So it's Mindy and I for the rest of the
technical difficulties are rearing their ugly head here, guys. But I don't think it's just specifically Bogo that the point. I think it's the point of bringing in a guy that's mobile, that's got, some championship pedigree, which Bogosian has. I'm not saying that, we have to find this year's Jordy Ben boys, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Chevy acquires a couple defensemen, because you know what they say, you need 10 defensemen to win the Stanley Cup.
Let me ask you guys this. Last year, if you include the Monahan acquisition, the Jets acquired 3 pieces: Monahan, Toffoli, and Colin Miller. How many pieces do you think the Jets acquire this year? We're going to do, we got 13 days to go. How many new roster pieces are on the Winnipeg Jets, come the trade deadline?
This is sponsored by Bogdan Kiselevich.
Well, I mean, yes, if you want to go back to a trade deadline acquisition, that I guess that counts.
I'm going to say 4, Drew. I think the Jets are going to acquire 4 players, which I think would still be short of the 2018 haul, because I think that year they acquired 6, if I'm not mistaken, right? I'd have to go back and count my Joe Morrows. But I think this year the Jets are most. I'm going to say that I think the Jets are going to be part of a package deal. I really think with all of the names out there, and we just saw a couple weeks back, right before the Four Nations, right, we saw Mikael Granlund and Cody Ceci acquired by the Dallas Stars. So I think the Jets are going to acquire a couple forwards and a couple defensemen. That's what I'm going with, Drew.
Dave, I'll ask you the same question.
Sorry, where would you put the line at, Drew?
Well, I said last year they acquired 3 pieces in Miller. I didn't say there was an over-under. I just said how many roster players are they, tight-knit group.
I don't see 4 is too many for me. I think I just don't see the Jets making that type of change. I understand that you're really just augmenting. You're just trying to balance things out. But to me, I think they'll make 2 significant moves. I think they'll add a good piece on D. I don't think they're going to just add a complimentary piece. I think they'll add a bigger piece. And I think that they'll go for that 2C. I really do. I could be wrong, but to me, that's the like I was advocating 20 minutes ago. This is the year for the Jets to really be aggressive, and so I think you have to acquire.
Okay, so let me interrupt you there for a second.
Sure.
We all agree. Everyone agrees that they need to improve the left side.
Yeah.
If you're aggressive, and this is the year to be aggressive, does that entail having to upgrade the right side as well on your back end?
Well, I mean, it also depends on, there's so many factors, right? Because you got to consider the term and the fact that you're most likely losing Neil Pionk next year. I mean, who knows? Maybe, hey, if Neil Pionk signs an extension, Ezzy will come back on in an hour or whatever, and we'll do 3 shows today if we need to. But yeah, I mean, I've advocated for a long time. I think Dylan DeMello ideally is suited to be a second pairing. If Dylan DeMello is beside Dylan Sandberg, that is a pretty good defensive unit for the Winnipeg Jets. And then if you have, that upgraded piece, or even if you leave DeMello with Morrissey, you upgrade on Pionk, even though, again, Pionk's numbers have been good with Sandberg. You put him down, and then you have Colin Miller as an option as either your 7th or whatever. You can cross him over to the other side. I'm just saying, I just think that the Jets need that. They just don't have that top 4 of a Stanley Cup champion that I see, Ezzy, and they don't have the center depth of a Stanley Cup champion. Again, they've got Connor Hellebuck. They've got a very good hockey team. I mean, again, people want to pillory the Winnipeg Jets. They're the number 1 team. They've got the most goals. Their goal differential is spectacular, right? I think they've got, right now, they might have the least goals against. Like, this is a team, just by comparison for, as he called the Blues a middling team, the goal differential is insane. I think they've got 60 more goals for, and they've got 37 less goals against. Same number of games played between them and the Blues. Now, I'm just saying that, to me, if you want to get this Jets team, which is really, really good, to that next level, I just think you need to augment them with that D upgrade and the 2C upgrade.
Yeah, and just to throw this in, I mean, I think right now everybody knows what the Jets' record is and the goal differential. Dave talks about it, the power play. I mean, there's a lot of ranked number 1 in the NHLs for the Winnipeg Jets right now, right?
Yeah.
But I think, to Dave's point, this team as it's currently constructed, for sure, you get to the second round. But getting to the second round, as we've talked about for months now, is not the goal. This Jets team and the core pieces of this Jets team, so you're talking about Scheifele, Connor, Morrissey, Hellebuck, Ehlers, this is the time to strike now and augment an already really good team so that you can beat the Dallases of the world, so you can beat the Edmontons, the Vegases, and get yourself to the Stanley Cup final, right? So I think whether, the Jets make 2 moves or 4 moves, I think it's safe to say, boys, that Chevy is not going to be dormant during this year's trade deadline, because at the end of the day, you have to reward this team for the way they've played, right? And Vlad Namestnikov, even though he just signed his 2-year contract, breaking on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show here, Dave M doing a good job getting up on illegalcurve.com, by the way. Namestnikov's going to understand because they just acquired Sean Monahan last year to upgrade the 2C position, right? So I think everyone's expecting some moves. Obviously there's big names out there like Brock Nelson and Mikko Rantanen. And, I know a lot of Jets fans covet Ryan O'Reilly up the middle, myself included. I mean, Ryan O'Reilly would look really nice as the Jets 2C, but regardless of who it is, there's going to be some moves because I think Chevy and the Jets management group, the coaching staff, the players, they all realize that it's completely wide open this year, guys. And this team
not that it's only completely wide open, but even if it isn't wide open, the Jets are one of the best teams in the league.
True.
So it's not that there's not good teams this year.
And also, Drew, we always say
those very
exactly,
good,
and we always say it's wide open, right? So
yeah.
But I think this year more than most other years that I can recall. And I think the X factor, if you're a Winnipeg Jets, person who pays attention to this team, is this is one of the best iterations of this team we've seen in Winnipeg since they've returned to the city. So, I mean, like there's, you talk about rewarding the group, but this is the group that's also gotten you there, right? That's that balancing act that Kevin Cheveldayoff has to follow. And again, the problem when you traded, sure, you made the moves last year, but what did Sean Monahan, who obviously improved your power play, which wasn't very good, but I would suggest that Davis Payne, Sean Monahan has done an even better job with the Jets power play. And Dean Chenoweth, by the way, the Jets, Drew, you talk about the Jets PK, they're up to 14th now, and they're, likely only to get better with Adam Lowry added to that mix. So you've already got a very good team. So like I said, that is why and I think as he said this before, it's such a fascinating job that Kevin Cheveldayoff has, because he really does have to be so careful, because of course you want to make those acquisitions, but these are the horses that have gotten you this far. So you want to augment it. And like, as he said, sure, Vlad Namestnikov got bumped back from 2C to 4C last year. And these guys know, look, at the end of the day, you put your ego aside. What did guys who were, I think Scott O'Neill said it, but somebody else said it. The guys who played on Canada's third and fourth line and other teams, third and fourth lines, are not third and fourth liners. On every other team, they're first liners, but they all accepted a role in order to win.
Right.
And the reality, the bottom line is that every single guy on that team, if they can win and they can raise Lord Stanley's Cup in June, they'll be water boys, if it means that they can get that their name on the cup and have that immortality. So I think guys will be happy to accept it. They just need to, again, like I said, but it still doesn't change the fact that it's going to be a balancing act for Kevin Cheveldayoff.
One last off-topic comment before we wrap up this morning's program. The Vancouver Canucks next year are paying two goaltenders, Thatcher Demko and Kevin Lankinen, more than the Winnipeg Jets are paying Connor Hellebuyck. I just wanted to make mention of that. Lankinen signing that new deal with the Canucks, Demko 1 year away from unrestricted free agency. I wonder if the writing's on the wall there, but whatever it is, the Canucks are paying those two goalies $9.5 million next year. The Winnipeg Jets are paying Connor Hellebuyck $8.5 million. That's good.
Are you just saying that, Drew, because Kevin Lankinen coughed up the puck behind the net? Remember on that Kyle Connor goal? I don't know.
I'm just saying that because I saw the contract and I thought, boy, isn't that some interesting salary cap management, that the Canucks are doing versus what the Jets and Kevin Cheveldayoff are doing. And I thought that would be a little sort of a humorous way to wrap up this morning's edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Wrap it up. I thought we need to go to overtime, Ezzy. Don't you think we need overtime or what?
Oh boy, here you go. I was hoping we weren't going to do this, but I guess we are going to go into overtime here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Let's go,
Put
folks.
on your antlers. It's time for the Minuk Moose Minute on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
I'll be honest. I wasn't even.
If you don't mind, I have to go get my daughter from a sleepover.
I'll be honest with you. I was just wanting to extend the conversation. I didn't want to talk about the Moose, but
wow, Dave didn't even want to talk about the Moose. Dave, we have another show tonight. We'll talk more about the Jets at Boston Pizza on Taylor Avenue later on tonight.
Okay,
in the meantime, the Moose, the struggles continue last night in Laval.
Oh, we lost Ezzy, but okay.
The battery.
Oh, the battery died. Okay, there you go. Well, the Moose, unfortunately, they started their 6-game road trip with a big win over former head coach and assistant coach of the Winnipeg Jets, Pascal Vincent. That's the first time they faced him since he joined the Columbus Blue Jackets back in 2021-22. He, of course, was the longtime head coach of the Manitoba Moose. He's pushed Laval. They're the top team in the AHL, at least from a winning percentage. And I believe from points percentage as well, or points, I should say. So he's got a really good team in Laval, which is good for him. And everybody's happy for his success. And the Moose got things started. Brad Lambert, he was picking up assists. He's leading the team with assists, Drew. And Parker Ford, we don't know his status yet. I'm working to get an update, folks. I'll hopefully have one soon. But I don't think he's on the road trip. So that's kind of tough news for them because they're playing 6 games on the road. They're now into Toronto. And last night they did lose to Laval. It was a tight game. It was 2-1 heading into the third period, but then Laval blew things open and it ended up being a 5-1 game, including an empty netter. But yeah, the Moose are in tough times. It's been a tough slog this year. Every time you think, well, maybe they're going to pull it out and make it a little more interesting, then they end up splitting the series. So they're doing the opposite of what they did the begin the year, which was lose the first game, win the second game. Now they're winning the first game and losing the second game. But unfortunately for them, the playoffs are looking like they're off in the distance and they're not going to catch them. And so that's unfortunate. But I will say, though, quickly, 2023 first rounder Braden Yeager, he is on fire. He's up to 71 points with Lethbridge, and he had 2 more assists in the game yesterday. If you haven't seen those, go to illegalcurve.com or go to our Twitter, and you can find it there.
There you go. Thank you very much, Dave M. A quick update about the prospects and the Manitoba Moose. Luke Horak, who covers the St. Louis Blues, reports Colton Parayko will be in the lineup for the Blues tonight. Joel Hofer in net as well. So that'll be happening at 6 o'clock. Come join us at Boston Pizza on Taylor Avenue, the Illegal Curve watch party, and the Illegal Curve post-game show still to come on this Super Saturday of Illegal Curve action. Big thanks to all of you for joining us. Great conversation, great contributions. We'll see everyone tonight. Big thanks to our sponsors. They make the post-game show, the Saturday show, and the website a possibility. That's our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club. Tim Meadows is at Rumors tonight. He's been there since Thursday. I need not tell you, all shows have been sold out straight from the SNL 50th anniversary to
Which was sorry, Drew. That was so good. I have to give, that was awesome. I don't know if you watched it, but it was really good. I didn't watch the music one yet. I watched a bit of it. I was never as interested in the music, but I thought the 50th anniversary special was awesome.
It was, and it's kind of cool. I had an opportunity to spend some time with Tim last night. It's pretty cool.
Whoa, little name drop, Mindell.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to go see a guy who was just at this 50th anniversary, prominently featured, and now he's here in Winnipeg. The crowds loved him. That's at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club.
Did you do Drew? Did you do the ladies' man to him?
I didn't. I did not want to embarrass myself. Play Now is the title sponsor of our programming. Holt Dental keeps our teeth looking shiny. Boston Pizza is where we'll be tonight. City Place is where we will be again next month. And of course, news on the playoffs to come as well. So stay tuned for that. And of course, Seagram's keeps us well hydrated. Thanks to all of you for joining us. In case you haven't already done so, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, set your notifications on. We'll see you later tonight for the Illegal Curve watch party. For Dave Minuk, for Ezra Ginsburg, whose computer has died, I'm your host, Drew Mindell. If it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.